we are out of time and we need to start the talk. So is that okay with you? I'll catch up with
Wonderful.
you.
Yeah, let's do that, Artie. Be so
Thank
nice
you.
too.
Thank
Yeah.
you. So, welcome to the Inner Space Covent Garden talk. Our talk today is the art of listening, making others feel seen and heard. To be a good listener requires 100% attention on the other person rather than being caught up in your own thoughts or being distracted by something. Are you distracted or are you able to stay present in conversations and listen fully? And even if you hear the words, do you really hear what another person means, not just what they say? We've asked our speaker to share her insights today on how to listen, not just with our ears, but with our heart, so that we can make others feel seen and heard, but most importantly, valued. Also, we'd love her to explore with us um, how to reduce misunderstandings and strengthen relationships. Gabriella is joining us from the Blue Mountains in Australia. And if you were hearing our chat earlier, she's been leading or she's been coordinating in an international project that celebrated the Brahma Kumaris meditation centers activities in Australia for 50 years. But not just that. Um, in the Blue Mountains, she's part of a team that coordinates the activities for our retreat center there. She also coordinates the um, activities in the heart of Sydney, opposite Bondi Beach. So you'll find her in many places, juggling many things, and yet I'm sure you're going to experience the stillness that she, and the peace that she carries in her spirit as she shares tonight. Gabriella is going to be sharing with us for the next 40 minutes or so. And after that, she'll do a guided meditation. Just a chance for you to take what you've been hearing and allow it to sink deeper into your heart so it becomes something that you can use in your life almost instantly. After that, she'll take your questions. So please send in your questions via the question and answer link or via the chat, and it will be my pleasure to put those questions to Gabriella on your behalf. Gabriella, welcome and over to you.
Oh, thank you, Artie. Thank you very much for your warm introduction and a big warm hello to the Inner Space community. It's lovely to be back with you again, and we've got a beautiful topic, the art of listening. And when Artie suggested that we have a conversation about this, I was mindful of my professional work as a strategic planner because when I'm involved in community engagement activity and consultations, I'm really very aware of the importance of listening and the importance of allowing people to have their say and express their viewpoints. And it doesn't matter what the topic is, whether it's an aspirational one like what kind of city would you like to live in, how do you create a sense of belonging, or whether it's more practical things like how do you move around the city, what are the roads like, what sort of cycleways would you like, footpaths, bush tracks, these sorts of things, and how do we make a city more sustainable? So it can be on any kind of topic, but what I note is that when people feel listened to, when they have the chance to have their say and to feel listened to and validated, then um, it helps it helps them express themselves, of course, creating that space, but actually it gives them the opportunity to go more deeply into their feelings as well about a certain topic. And once they've done that, they've had that chance to have their say, even if the outcome isn't what they were hoping for, because here in Australia it's a participative democracy, and there's lots of different opinions and viewpoints, and yet not all are going to be acted or implemented. But if there's that chance to have your say and to be listened to and respectfully listened to, then generally there's a much greater acceptance of the collective outcome. And I think it's the same on a personal level. I'm sure I can't see you or hear you, but I'm sure you're probably nodding and thinking, yeah, that's the same in terms of our personal relationships. And so what I wanted to do was ask you some reflective questions as we move along. And when I do that, I'm going to just put my screen up like this, and you'll know that it's a reflective question. And then you've got the chance to stay in your own space and think about that, what it means to you. And then we'll come back to the conversation. So, the first thing I want to sort of check in with you on is we know the value of listening. So, how often do you feel listened to really wholly so that it's like you're feeling deeply listened to? And that can be in your personal or even your professional conversations. Maybe it happens daily, maybe it's a weekly thing, maybe it's rarely. But equally, how often do you feel that you listen to others, to those people who populate your working life, as well as to your family and your friends, in such a way that they too feel really seen and heard beyond their words? So, how often do you feel listened to, and how often do you listen to others? I think it's that in our general everyday conversations, they're often transactional, aren't they? We talk about things like we check in on the kids, we ask questions like, did you collect the shopping, or what's going on with grandma, and paying bills and so on. And we definitely need these kinds of conversations. They're transactional conversations where we exchange information. And even in these conversations, often we're thinking about what we need to say next, and we're thinking about, we might even be judging or criticizing the person who's speaking while they're speaking. Um, but less frequently, our conversations are relational. And by this, I mean the kind of listening that goes beyond just the exchange of information. It's listening that allows for the expression of emotions, or the sharing of personal experiences, or shared dreams and goals. But it's listening with the intention to understand, and not just with the intention to reply. And all the social research informs us that when we receive listening, and I think that's quite a beautiful expression, they talk about receiving listening. And when we receive listening, it helps us enormously to feel understood, to feel validated, to feel affirmed and valued, and sometimes, of course, to feel relieved. And always it helps to feel emotionally connected. And in this way, when this happens, our relationships really do flourish. And people like Brené Brown and other social scientists, they tell us that our brains are hardwired to connect, and connecting makes us, or gives us, a sense of belonging. So being listened to deeply helps us feel seen and understood. And more than that, when we're being listened to, it allows us, or gives us the space to really consider our own thoughts more deeply and our feelings, and be more inspired to explore them more fully. And it's this kind of presence and connection through listening that our relationships flourish. Even when viewpoints can be significantly different, there's an underlying goodwill and respect there, because as another being, you've been honored and listened to. So, some lovely things are there in social research affirming the importance of listening. But I kind of think, well, what does listening look like? And how do you know when someone's really listening to you? And for me, I find that when someone takes the time to minimize the distractions, and there's a lot of distractions, and when they focus fully on the conversation, then they're telling me with their actions that what I have to say really matters. And that might be things like, silencing their phone or putting it out of their eyesight, their sight of vision, so that, they're not going to be distracted by that. And that's a fairly big distraction, yeah. But also things like closing the door, um, so that it's signaling, we're creating a space and it's signaling privacy as well. And it's really important, they say, I notice too, for, if they face me and I can see their eyes, I can see their face, rather than just having someone glance at a screen and half listen. So it's about looking at those externals and seeing that, yeah, this person's making an effort. They're ready for a conversation. They're ready to do the listening and making space so that I can be seen and heard. And there's lots and lots that we know about the art of listening. And the communication experts tell us to do things like pause before you respond. So, as a listener, when someone finishes speaking, just using that small silence after they've spoken so that you're really absorbing what's been said and you're taking it in. And then when you do respond, you check in. It's like you're reflectively um, summarizing what you think you heard. But one of the other things that I find really, really important is to have this non-judgmental attitude, so that I'm suspending any immediate critique. I'm just getting rid of that from my mind so that I can tune into what the person is actually saying. And I don't know if you've ever been in the presence of someone who truly listened to you, you'll know how fulfilling that experience can be. It's a beautiful experience to be listened to so deeply, where you feel very, very seen. And, contrastingly or conversely, um, if you're dismissed, if you're not listened to, if your feelings are ignored, then obviously that's going to trigger withdrawal or anger, and it might even evoke past experiences that were quite traumatic for you. And one of the things that really intrigues me about this whole aspect of communication and listening is that, despite so many different ways we can communicate now, globally with people on the other side of the world, texts, emails, social media, what we actually have happening in our world is a global social reality where people feel disconnected and feel lonely. Um, and I can't remember what the stats are, but the obviously that feeling of isolation went up during the pandemic, and as I understand, it's still pretty much at that level. It's across the age cohorts, older adults, but significantly younger people, and a high percentage of them really reporting feeling quite isolated and lonely. And yet, we're increasingly using counsellors and telephone helplines and things like that to talk to people about our daily lives and what's concerning us, because, we really want to be seen and heard. And something that I've been noting is the increase in the use of artificial intelligence as a listener. And so people connecting in with their AI companion at the end of the day to debrief. And reportedly, AI is a good listener, provides practical advice, but most significantly, what they say, always available so that they're able to connect in just whenever they wish. So, a lot of things out there, listening devices, ways to connect, and so on, yet this increase in loneliness. But one of the things I wanted to mention was here in Australia, there's an Aboriginal practice called Dadidiri, which actually privileges silence and listening over talking. And many indigenous practices of communication have this sort of thing, but it's a spiritual practice of the Aboriginal peoples, and it comes from the Northern Territories, and it means inner deep listening and quiet, still awareness. And I think that says a lot, doesn't it? But you're really listening in that space, and you're listening to yourself, you're listening to your own breath, you're reflecting deeply, and you're listening not just to the external sounds, but really what's going on within. And most importantly, you're connecting to country. So it's a practice that emphasizes patience, it emphasizes stillness, and really being present. And you're not trying to rush or force any understanding. It's a very beautiful way to listen. But while I love that practice, I think it's true for most of us that, we live time pressured lives, and we often feel we don't have the headspace to listen or the headspace to focus or the time to focus. And so we don't get those levels of conversation that we'd like, perhaps. And when it's like this, our relationships can, go astray a bit, because that deep listening to who you are and who they are and what deeply concerns and what their aspirations are just doesn't happen. Um, so this time factor, not having the headspace, too much going on. We've got back-to-back appointments, engagements, diaries that are action-packed, and not having that ability to focus. And I think that's really very true for many of us. But something's happened for me, and that is that over the years, I've noticed something different happening within myself when I'm listening. And it's actually not related to the amount of time I have. What it's related to is my state of mind. And so when I feel calm and quiet within myself, that's that quiet space that we all go into when we meditate. And when I just really have that awareness that I'm a soul and I'm listening to someone, then my listening becomes easy and it's focused, and I can catch the feelings behind the words being spoken and really tune in to what the person is expressing and saying. And so it's just that ability to turn within and stay focused in this space of calm and creating that sense of calm. And I often think about this as soul conscious communication and soul conscious listening. It's like, you're really listening to the soul of another. And for this, I need a quiet and calm mind. And I imagine, that you could be asking, well, is this possible? How's it possible to have a calm and quiet mind when we have so many responsibilities? I'm going to share something with you. I've witnessed and also received listening from people with many, many, lots of responsibilities, and they've been able to hold, well, what they're doing really is they're holding that meditative consciousness while they're in action. And so it's easy to do this with the practice of Raj Yoga meditation because it's an open-eyed practice. So you can hold that consciousness, all of the beautiful treasures that you get in meditation, you can bring them into your active, everyday, busy living. And so when you feel that calm emanating from them, when you're in their presence, and it's like you have all the time in the world. It's like they give you all the time in the world to listen to you. And it's as if time opens up because everything's slowed down just from the calmness and the peace that they're emanating. And in their beautiful calmness, they're able to catch the feelings behind the words and beyond the words, and also catch the feelings that aren't conveyed in words. And they go to that very deep level and they're listening to the heart and responding to that, and know what's happening in that space. I've witnessed too how much love they bring to their listening. So it's not like a sense of obligation or duty, but just this really sincere kind of love that comes from their heart. And even though it feels like you're absorbed in a timeless space and being very seen and being very listened to, it's actually just a short time. It's because it's like time opens up and it's very efficient and it may only be 1 or 2 minutes. And I've seen this happen so many times and I've received it myself. And I've noted that when we choose to go deeply within, then and listen from that space, focus is there, headspace is there, and also time is there. I think you might be, and I think of this as being like, the art of soul conscious listening. It's a very deep way to listen and a very efficient way to listen. Maybe you're aware of that. It's a much quoted statistic, and it says that when we communicate, it's in three parts. It's the content, it's the tone, body language, and it's also the vibration and the energy. And so when we're speaking or communicating, people assess our authenticity, if you like, on the basis of what we say, but only 7%. It's really, really small. So what we say isn't as important as how we say it and how we express it. And that isn't as important as the vibration or the energy. So tone and body language is 38%. So I can use the same words just with a different tone and there'll be a different impact. And so tone and body language, 38% people assess your authenticity on that basis. But 55% is about the vibration and the energy that you're bringing to the conversation. And so when I understand that, I can begin to think that real communication and real listening begins with my consciousness, and that actually our human relationships are about vibration and about presence, and it's about an energy exchange. So, what's in my awareness will be revealed in my vibration, and it's this that people pick up and feel. And they'll feel listened to if my vibration is present, is focused, and is one of peace and calm. So, the art of soul conscious listening really focuses on my awareness and my vibrations. And when I'm speaking, it's my vibration and my body language and my presence that's really doing the work there, so to speak. So, when I think about this, I think it's really useful to start to unpack this a little bit more. Put simply, soul consciousness means just remembering who I truly am. It's as simple as that. I'm thinking about and feeling myself to be a soul, the living energy within this body, and it's the energy that operates this body. But I am just a conscious, eternal being of light, the living energy, and I express myself through this body. And when I'm listening to another, I'm listening as a soul, listening to another soul, because it's not the body that listens. So this very first aspect of soul consciousness, it's the subject of knowing myself and knowing that I'm a soul, that I'm not this body. And it's a really important subject that it's probably one of the most important fundamental subjects on the path of spirituality. But this understanding of being a soul goes further, because when I know that I'm soul, what I can understand is that I'm not my role. I'm not my title. I'm not my label. I'm not my position. And I'm not even my achievements. And that can sound a little bit unusual, a bit strange perhaps when we look at what's going on in our world, because, popular media and popular culture will tell us quite a different story. When we introduce ourselves, we often say where we're born, what our nationality is, obviously our gender, our age. We talk a lot about that. We have a culture story, we have a religious story. And these are all factors related to my physical existence. But when I'm listening to someone and when I'm communicating with someone, it's really useful to put that aside, because these markers of identity, if I hang on to them, I'll be bringing into a conversation all the assumptions I make about these roles or these body realities. And some of them will be prejudiced. My assumptions will be filled with prejudice, and some of them will be filled with privilege and entitlement. So if I can put them aside, then I'm going to be listening from a very clear and clean space. And so if I get into my role and my sense of entitlement, then I'm going to be listening from that space. And it's not my role that listens, it's I, the soul, that listens. So I, the soul, I'm not female, I'm not Caucasian, I'm not middle-aged, I'm not a strategic planner, I'm not all these things, these are achievements, they're external things. But when I want to communicate with someone or really listen to them, then I want to go inside and listen from the inside out. So soul, just a soul. And I can do this when I come back to the reality of who I am. The moment that I remember that, I'm activating this beautiful peace that exists, and I'm feeling it, and I'm bringing it into the conversation or into my listening. And why this is significant is because within the soul are innate powers. There's your natural love. So you're tapping into that. Your wisdom's there. And that's so important when you're listening. And if I just look at love, for example, from that many different qualities emerge. There's empathy, something that's beautiful to bring into your listening. There's compassion. There's kindness. There's acceptance. These are the qualities that help me suspend my judgments. There's generosity of spirit and there's humility. And these are all wonderful listening qualities. So when I interact from this state of consciousness, something changes. My words actually carry more sincerity. They're more real, more authentic. And naturally, my tone becomes calmer and my body language shows that I'm actively listening. And my listening becomes deeper. It's almost like I'm listening to the heart of another. And when I contrast this with kind of transactional listening, which is, or even some types of relational listening, when I slip into the consciousness of just being a body, I forget that actually I'm a soul and I just start focusing on my role or my position or the markers of this body. Then what tends to happen is that we start reacting from ego, like this is my position, this is my role, this is my title, these are my emotions, and you should listen to me, and that's when misunderstanding and tension in relationships and stress and miscommunication arise. So this idea of how I listen changes in when I've got this consciousness that I'm just a body and that this person that I'm listening to is, just my employee or whatever. I'm going to be focusing on that title. So I don't want to think about myself as a body. I want to think about myself as a soul. If I think about myself as a body, I'll be projecting that onto others. And I won't be able to, I'll be seeing them in that way and I'll be making assumptions about them. And I won't be able to see their fullness. And it won't be surprising that they may not feel so listened to. And it's the same with my role. If I focus on that, then, I'm the manager or I'm a colleague or I'm the child or I'm the spouse. Then I'll bring some sense of entitlement into that. And actually, when I'm listening, I'm not the boss and I'm not the parent. I'm a soul listening and wanting to understand the one in front of me who's also a soul. And I don't want to bring my agenda into it either. And that's what happens when I get stuck in my body reality and my role reality. And I focus on what I want to say next, or or I start criticizing, or I start focusing on, how I might be able to exert my influence on them so that, I get them to do what I want them to do. And that's a very corrupted way of listening. In fact, it's not listening at all. And I get motivated by my reactions, my defensiveness, or at worst, I'll be dismissive of them completely. And so when I'm soul conscious, when I'm really starting to feel myself as a soul and I'm listening from that inner space, then I'm going to feel that and experience it, and I'm going to have that vision towards the one whom I'm listening to. I'm going to see them just as a soul as well, a beautiful point of light, wanting to express themselves. And I'm here to listen. And my natural calm and peace emerges. And, this gives a lovely openness and stillness to the listening and brings presence. And I think one of the things that I need when I'm doing listening in this way, or just being a conduit for listening, then I think we know about emotional intelligence, but this is kind of like soul conscious intelligence. It's that ability to think and feel about myself, something much greater and deeper than my body, through which I express myself and the roles that I play. This soul conscious intelligence is an awareness that I'm a soul and I, the soul, relate to other souls, and that I take full responsibility for my feelings, for my emotions, for my thoughts, for my actions, and that I don't project them onto others. And I think this is real strength. It takes real spiritual power. And I need this capability to listen deeply to another without assumptions, without prejudice, without critique, or without projecting onto myself onto another person whom I'm listening to. So I'd like us to do a little reflective exercise now. So once again, I'm going to just switch my video off and you can look at this image. And this question this time is, think of a recent conversation in which you felt you listened well. So think of a recent conversation in which you felt you listened well. And what was your inner state? And now think of one where you felt you didn't listen well. And what was your inner state? See if you can notice the difference. I'm sure the difference wasn't just external, it's the inner awareness and the consciousness of the listener that allows us to listen well. So here's some tools, if you like, for the art of deep listening, and you can put these into practice immediately. They're everyday tools. So the first one is, I am a soul, and this person is a soul. And this is where deep listening starts. So before the conversation, or even in the moment when you know that this is a moment where it'd be really good for me to listen, just pause for a little moment and affirm to yourself, I am a soul. I'm present and I'm here to listen. And then when you're listening, just remember this person is also a soul and tell yourself that. And with that shift, the other person becomes more real to you. There's no role, no label. And if you're in meetings or situations that are high pressured, allow yourself to pause before you dive in and practice that internal thought. I, the soul, am listening. I meet another soul. And this shift changes the tone and vibrations that emerge immensely. And it's a particularly useful thing to do if you think the conversation's going to be a courageous conversation, or it's going to be one where, there's going to be an expression of disagreement. But this kind of listening really helps those conversations. And the second thing is to let go of your roles and judgments. And here's a little trick for that. Often we listen with our mind on autopilot and we form our responses and we judge. And really what I need to do is gently turn off the mental stream and give attention. So just monitor your mind when it begins to form a response and gently bring it back to listening. In that moment that I remember I'm a soul, I drop my role, I drop my label, my title, my position, and I become the listener. And I can see and relate to the people that I'm listening to, or the person that I'm listening to, in that way as well. And if you find yourself being judgmental or critical, just use an inner affirmation. And I always think it's great for people to, develop their own affirmations, but one that I've used is just an inner affirmation of I'm here fully and I value you as a soul. And it really helps ground me and remind myself of the calm and the peace within inside myself and bringing that into vibrationally into the exchange. And the third one, respecting the essence. And this is about listening as a soul, not just to the words, but to the feelings and the deeper needs. And silent listening is an act of great respect. It gives others the space to think and to express. So I'm reminding myself that I'm listening to the essence. I'm not just listening to the words, I'm listening to the heart. And then the last one I like to use is checking in with myself after a conversation. Just quickly, a quick reflection for just a minute. How did I listen? And what was my inner state? So just these four little practical tips. And the more you practice them, the easier it gets. It works like that. There's no, um, it doesn't have to take a long time, but the more you practice it, the more natural it will become, and you'll actually start to just naturally bring this into your conversations. Perhaps some of you know Daddy Janki. She was a senior yogini and one of our former administrative heads. And I'm thinking of her at the moment because she was someone who could use the power of silence in speech and in actions and listening. And she would, in silence, she would have already communicated with you and listened to you, and she'd have picked up your feelings and what was in your heart. And so that when you spoke with her, she'd use very few words, and it would be like time would just stand still, it would open up, and you'd feel so listened to. And it was because you'd already received the listening. And in a few moments in her company, you'd feel very understood, and everything would become very clear. And so her ability to use silence and to listen to someone was, it was very active and it was very powerful. And we can all do this um, to a lesser or greater extent. It depends on how much you choose to practice it. But I'm going to do another reflective moment with you. So let me just go back to this image. What I'd like you to do is consider someone in your life at the moment who may appreciate being listened to. And then in the next few moments, in silence, just visualize yourself doing this. Just listen to them in silence. This is a lovely thing to do, and it's a useful thing to do to harmonize your relationships, actually. Vibrationally, you've already listened to them, but it's doubly powerful if you do it in action. It really does build respectful relationships on a very subtle and soul level. Um, and I think I've covered quite a lot of terrain around listening to others, but just as I finish up, I just want to check in with you about listening to yourself. Um, this is such an important thing. And so my question here is how often and how well do you listen to yourself? I don't know about you, but sometimes we can find it so easy to ignore ourselves, and a lot of people find it really difficult to prioritize themselves. But when we're able to put ourselves on the top of our care for list, it's actually not being selfish. It's the first step to being selfless. And so, just with listening to others, I need a quiet and calm mind to listen to myself. And I need to create that space because we're facing many challenges in our world today, and I need to attend to my emotional self-care. And that starts with listening to myself and nourishing my inner world. I need to know what's going on and what's happening in my inner world, and I need to consider how well I understand why I have certain emotions and feelings and why I react the way that I do. And I also need to be able to access those inner qualities that exist within me, the beautiful qualities that are there, love and hope and happiness and wisdom and truth, and bring them into my everyday relationships in a way that I'd like to. And the method that I've found to be really useful in this is meditation. And it means spending time with myself and getting to know myself, and then appreciating myself and learning to value myself, and then to love and respect myself. And when I can do this with myself, then I can do it with others. And this is the way that just by listening to myself and honoring my need to maintain my inner environment, I can bring that into my outer environment and share that with others. And I also need to listen to my conscience. There's many things that influence our conscience: geography, where we live, our culture, our age, our generation. But conscience is, it's actually eternal and it's universal. And when I ignore my conscience, when I'm not listening to it, even though deep in my heart I might know what I should do or what the truth is, but when I'm not listening to my conscience, it's not possible for my conscience to be my friend and guide me. And the more I don't listen to it, the quieter it becomes, and the harder it is to listen and to hear my conscience. But in meditation, I can start to listen to that inner voice again of my conscience. And all I need to do is sit quietly, just for a few moments every day, and turn within and see what's going on. And I become aware that as I do this, it becomes more and more natural, and I can bring it into my everyday living where, I, the soul, I'm listening to the things that are going on around me, and I, the soul, am relating and listening to you, the soul. And when I start listening to myself and my conscience, I can begin to listen to the divine, whomever or whatever I consider the divine to be. And you might find that as you do this, you start to feel that one's presence, and you can bring this experience into your art of listening. So, listening to others, listening to myself, listening to my conscience, and listening to the divine. Beautiful ways of being able to enrich my relationships and restore relationships where that needs to happen as well. I think I might push pause here and do a meditation with you. So it's an easy way to meditate. I'm going to just put this image up so you can stay with that image. And I'd just like to do a meditation on the art of listening. So you just need to sit upright in a chair, if that's what you're sitting on, and with your feet on the floor. And just stay alert. If you'd like to try keeping your eyes open, you can focus on that image of the sun on the screen that you're looking at. But most importantly, just allow your mind to come to rest and follow the ideas that I'm going to speak during this meditation commentary. And if you find it hard to keep your eyes open, then just gently close them. That's absolutely okay as well. And so I just allow my body to relax, and I can feel it unwinding. I'm relaxing peacefully, supported by the chair. And as my body comes into stillness, it gives me permission to take a journey inside. And I decide to look at my mind, to look at what I'm thinking. And just simply watching my mind allows it to slow down. Instead of racing in so many different directions, my thoughts now simply focus on the being of light that I am, beautiful being of light. And I connect with myself in this way. I'm not my role. I'm not my label. I'm not my position, my title. I'm not my achievements. I've focused outside for so long, and now for a little while, I focus inside. And I come to the awareness of the spark of life, the living being, the being who I am. And in the center of my forehead shines a radiant star, a point of light. I am light. I am peace. This peace is my natural state of being. It's who I truly am. And feeling this peace opens a portal to other qualities and powers that lie within me. I begin to feel my original quality of love. And from this love, there is compassion. There's empathy. There's kindness. There's acceptance of others. There is generosity of spirit. There is wisdom. So many beautiful qualities that enrich my ability to listen deeply to others, so they feel seen and they feel heard. And so many of these beautiful qualities I give to myself as I listen to myself. I let these qualities emerge and I bring them into my life. And now, just for a moment, I look deeper within myself. I look at my conscience. I go deep inside my own being. And I gently touch the truth of my own conscience. And in the awareness of this truth, my conscience is powerful. It is free. Free from influence. Free from things of the past. Free from the things that people have said. In this calm, I can listen. I can listen to the sound of my conscience. And just simply listening and valuing what my conscience has to say empowers it. And I can feel in the stillness, the silence, the presence of the divine. I listen to the divine. I listen to myself. And I listen to others. And with a thought, I come back into the awareness of this room and the things happening here. I keep this awareness of peace and who I am within myself. I stay connected with the divine and with myself, and I share this vibrationally as I interact and listen to others. Om Shanti. So back to the room. I think I'll finish there.
Gabrielle, that was amazing. I love how you covered the topic to include listening, yes, to others, to the self, um, one's conscience.
Mm,
There's nothing that makes an individual more uncomfortable or me more uncomfortable if I'm
mm,
not aligned with myself and my conscience. And then the divine. And all
mm,
of them are there, not just for for me to be there for them, but they're actually there for me, all four
mm,
arenas. And
mm.
I'm walking away with such inspiration. So thank you for
My
that.
pleasure. Yeah.
There's a few questions that have come in and a few thank yous already, but let me start with this first person. Um, I really appreciate your words, and I'm very grateful to have taken part in your session. I try to be mindful when listening and responding. I have a few people in my life. Um, I have a few people in my life um, who offload a lot of negativity in conversation and via text messages and feel it's okay for them to do this. How do you balance practicing the art of listening deeply and protecting oneself from absorbing others' negativity?
Thank you for that question. I think it's a very real question, isn't it? I'm sure you're not alone with that one. I think many of us experience that. And listening, we've been talking about that, but there's also things like respectful boundaries. So there's times when it's appropriate to listen, and there's times when it's appropriate to put up a respectful boundary. And if your text messages are abusive in any way, then that needs to be addressed. I think it's true too what you're saying around people offloading, and many people like to be listened to because they need to ventilate. But that doesn't mean that you need to absorb when you're listening. And it's this relationship between observing and absorbing. So if I feel like I'm absorbing their negativity, then a good way to deal with that is to observe it rather than absorb it. So if I'm coming into this state of being a soul, already there's this lovely protective barrier where others can't come into that peace and calm. The vibration might be coming towards me, and it may be a very negative one, but there's this beautiful protective aura or orbit around me. And you can do some things to really strengthen that. And one thing that I like to do is really call on the presence of the divine in that moment. So bring that one. I'm reminding myself I'm a soul and bringing out my positive qualities, because those positive qualities, the other person will pick them up eventually. Yeah, they'll get them. It'll eventually sort of like osmotically be transmitted to them. But bring in the power of the divine. And this is why you need to meditate regularly, so that you form that relationship with the divine. And that one becomes a beautiful protective canopy, the presence of that one around you, so you're not absorbing the negativity. But of course, if people are repeatedly, um, uh, if there's a person who's repeatedly behaving with you in this way, then it's a boundary issue as well. But there's something else I think I'd mention too, and that's something that you do when you're not with them. And that's that little exercise that I mentioned around sending light. So you think of someone who needs listening, and this was something Daddy Janky was very good at. She would send light to someone in advance, and not necessarily anticipating a conversation, but she would do it anyway. And it's a lovely way of bringing some equanimity into the relationship, so that when you are face to face and listening, already some of that heat's been taken out of it, because you see, vibrations are hugely powerful. They're more powerful than anything. That's what we're communicating. And so people receive those vibrations as they receive your listening, and they can receive those vibrations should you choose to send it in advance of the conversation and the listening. It's a beautiful spiritual tool, and it's one of incredible gravity to be able to send light and to protect yourself using light so that you don't absorb what you're listening to and the vibration of what you're listening to, but you hold your space. You hold yourself in a very protected space. I hope that helps.
Thank you very much. When you've had a conversation and you've heard the person speaking openly and honestly, being present, but at the end of the conversation, if you absolutely disagree with them, how do you move forward with that? How do you keep a relationship, stay open, but still be on opposite sides of the conversation or beliefs?
Yeah, I think, when we think about sometimes having different opinions is absolutely fine. We'll all have different opinions on things. But if I'm trying to persuade someone to my opinion or my viewpoint, and we have to really check ourselves with this, can I just accept that person as they are? They hold a different view from me. That's their view. I hold this view. It's different from theirs. I've listened to what they've said. Um, I've endeavored to understand it. Maybe I've been able to catch the feeling at the bottom there. And maybe it's one of, well, they just want to be seen and heard. Let me give them that. It's a different opinion from what I have, but that's fine. It doesn't change my opinion, and their opinion hasn't changed. Do I need to express mine? Maybe, maybe not. But when it comes to really personal relationships or more intimate relationships, I think it's reasonably easy to do that in the workplace and where relationships are a little bit more distant, neighborhoods, communities, and so on. Um, but when it's a more personal situation and it's an intimate relationship, then that means that you want the relationship to continue, presumably. Um, then I think that's when you rest on the goodwill in the relationship, and that means that I have to have created that goodwill. Um, and I can think of instances in my own life where there's been disagreement with people that I am connected with, friendships, and have long-term friendships with, and where our opinions have been different. Yes, there's always been that commitment to listen, but also to acknowledge that difference is okay. Um, so long as there's that respect for the other as a soul and as a being, and for all the goodness that exists there within, um, and there's goodwill in the relationship, then it's simply put to that point. Well, we have a different opinion on this, and it's left at that. So just that checking point of, am I trying to persuade them to my point of view? Hopefully not. If I can just detach myself from that, then the goodwill in the relationship will enable the difference of opinion to exist within the and the relationship to continue to flourish.
Thank you. Next question. You spoke about being silent before replying. Does that
Mm.
work over the phone? And does it
Oh,
work by texting?
Oh, that is such a good question. Look, telephone conversations are so different from face to face, and telephone conversations are, you have to stay more in tune because you're not picking up the body language. You're picking up tone, but you're not picking up body language, and um, and so you know we know that in emails they can often go astray because you're not able to express what we express when we see and tone of voice and so on. So the more remote the method of communication, like an email or a text message, the more important to pause. So what that means is, and I practice this myself, especially if I'm having some kind of emotional response to a text message or an email, I don't send the response straight away. Just don't. Because respect for myself as well as the other, but I need to process these emotions or my feelings and be able to look at it in a way that where I'm not being overtaken by my emotion and my feeling. So the pause is really important, no matter what, even if it's on the telephone. Um, I mean, they can hear you breathing, and you might just go, you make a noise like, you know, these sorts of things, so they know you're there. But it's just allowing yourself to take that space to consider, reflect what's been said, and then you can come back into or reply if that's what's required. Um, I think pauses are great, actually. And you can always say something like, if it's on the phone, I'm just thinking about what you were saying. I'll just take a minute to think about that. And that's absolutely fine to do it. We see it face to face. We see it happening face to face, so we don't have to say it. But I think pauses are one of the most effective ways of, and respectful ways of giving space to yourself and to the other, whether I'm the one doing the speaking or whether I'm the one doing the listening. Mm. And it's the same with your text messages as well. You don't have to reply instantly to them. You can take your time, and this is part of the thing around instant communication, isn't it? But knowing the importance of silence and stillness in terms of the art of listening and in the role that plays in harmonizing and making joyful our relationships, then that silence, that pause is a good thing, whether it's in a text message by not responding straight away, or whether it's in an email, whether it's on the telephone.
Thank you. There's a few more questions. Have you got another 5 minutes or so, quickly, just to
Yes,
get through them? Is
fine.
that okay? Thank you. I know you've got a session shortly, so I don't want to step too far into that time. Next question. I'm a good listener, but sometimes I feel resentful because no one really listens to me. Often
Mhm.
people do monologues and not have a conversation. Have you experienced this? Do you have any advice?
Yeah. Look, I think that's a really beautiful question. Thank you for that. Uh, some people are naturally introverted, and 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 some people are naturally good listeners, and some people are naturally extroverts and like to talk a lot and so on. But if when I'm in a situation where, and actually I've had to learn in my life how to talk. I've had to learn how to um, say what I think and what I feel. It wasn't something that I was more shy and more introverted. Um, so this aspect of, and it's a good thing to look at in my conversations, am I doing more listening and the other person doing more talking? And it's over to me actually to step into the conversation and change it. If you find that you're not getting the space to share and someone's over talking, they're not likely to change that unless I change myself and allow myself to step into the conversation and start expressing my feelings and giving them the opportunity to listen. They may not naturally take it, But, a conversation and our relationships, there has to be times when we speak and speak honestly about ourselves and our feelings and our emotions and our aspirations, because this brings connection with each other. And there's times when I need to do the listening, but if you find you're always doing the listening, then maybe you're in the company of people who are too dominating, and that's going to be their journey to change that. But equally, let me step into the space of actively talking and actively expressing my opinion and my viewpoint and my expressing my feelings and my responses. And you'll find that this actually brings more closeness. Mm.
Very interesting because it leads into the next question or area. Sometimes when listening, especially when people who are speaking very fast or who keep repeating themselves, I find I have a hard time listening actively. And to protect myself, I shift my attention unconsciously to something else, like doodling or a piece of paper on a piece of paper, or cracking my fingers or crossing my legs. How can one be better in such a situation, a better listener in such a situation?
Um, if people are, I love what you said about all the way we distract ourselves when we're a bit tired of listening. Um, I think respecting yourself in the situation of, you've got some clear signs there that you're disengaging, but you've also said something there around the person's repeating themselves. Now, this is just general conversations here, everyday conversations. Counselors will have different approaches, but um, you can actually reflect back. So you're not just listening, um, you can then reflect back. Oh, I heard you say that, da di da di da. I think this is what you're saying. Is that right? And then that should, or hopefully, get them off the I'm repeating myself, repeating the same thing over and over again. So you step in actually and say, it sounds like you've been da di da di da, and I've heard you say that a couple of times now. And so, you reflect back really quickly, and that often just allows them to stop repeating themselves, and the conversation can move on from there. People tend to um, stop when they hear it reflected back.
Okay, two more questions. Um, when a person experiences a lot of fear, that is a lot of noise in their head, how do you put that fear aside so you can be present in the moment?
Yeah, I don't know whether you're feeling fear all the time or just in relation to a conversation in a person. Um, but, the thing is, we all have fear. Um, and and there's an increasing amount of fear in our world, and we're picking up on those vibrations of fear in our world. And the only way that I know to overcome fear is the practice of meditation. And the more you meditate, and by that I mean daily, practice it daily. Do meditation every day. Do it in the morning so that you're building up your spiritual resources at the beginning of the day and you're filling up. And that holds you in a state of calm. So at the beginning of your day, when you're not feeling the fear, sit in meditation. And as you fill up with peace and calm, and it's like this soul just fills up with peace and calm, and it becomes more peaceful and more calm, and the fear recedes, just recedes. I'm not focusing on the fear, it's receding. I'm focusing on the calm and the peace. And there's ways of doing that in meditation, listening to commentaries, but I'm putting my focus when I meditate on my inner qualities of peace and calm. And then during the day, if I find myself feeling fearful, I can come back to that experience of the peace that I felt in the morning. And just remembering it, I'll come back into it. You see, my peace is a thought away, and my fear is a thought away as well. So I want to focus on the peace. But You need to build up that reservoir of peace, and you do that. It happens very easily, very enjoyably, actually, just through meditating at the beginning of the day and taking little pauses during the day to go back into that experience of tranquility or serenity. And then in the evening as well, calming down my mind in the evening, washing it clean before I sleep. And so if I'm in a situation where I've become fearful because I'm in a conversation and someone's being quite dominant, then some of those things that I talked about before around light, putting light around yourself. And as soon as you actively start to do that, the fear reduces because you're focusing on light, you're bringing in light, and you're wrapping yourself in it. And the peace comes back again. So it's around catching yourself when you're feeling the fear and before it escalates, but even if it's escalating, and then you might want to take a couple of deep breaths. Big breaths, just allow, not, they don't have to be that big, they don't have to be visible, but breaths that allow you just to intake some air and calm the body down, and then go back into that I am a soul, I am peaceful, this is my nature. Visualize the light around you, and you'll find the fear dissipating. But the best thing is not to feel the fear, and you do this by building up your meditation practice so that fear becomes, um, you know, not a frequent experience or not an experience at all. You just become so clear and honest and peaceful that, yeah, you don't feel that fear.
Um, Last two questions, very quick responses needed for both. The first one is, you said in your talk about listening, not only listening to others, but listening to yourself. And I find sometimes this very hard to combine. I notice how desperately my partner wants to be heard and understood, and he acts out of his need and emotions without trying to find this deeper connection. Although I am still learning to accept and love people unconditionally, this situation drains me. I don't enjoy feeling neglected, and I don't know what exactly I'm not noticing or what I'm doing wrong. Do you have any thoughts or advice?
I can share some of my thoughts with you, and I'm happy to do that. You know, I'm assuming you're female, and it's such a thing for women to uh, make time for themselves. It's almost like we've been programmed. I mean, I think everyone has been, but females in particular get programmed to be the listener, and so it takes some effort to put yourself first, and it's so important that you do. And sometimes it's just around when when your husband or when the person isn't talking a lot, but in a quieter moment, just mentioning that you're going to take some quiet time out and make that a reality of your daily timetable so that they get to know that you've made a commitment to yourself for your personal time, and it's at this time that I do it, and it's where I'm in this room when I do it. I'm creating a little space here, and I'm making this time. And when you see me in this chair facing this way or looking like I'm meditating, it means I'm not available to you. This is my personal time, time for myself. So you have to structure that time into your day, and it's really important to do this. You can't wait for your household to be quiet, for your partner to be watching TV, or for the kids to be in bed. You have to create that space for you, and then they get to know that your personal time is valuable to you and that they need to honor it. So it's like you're retraining things there, resetting, recalibrating. Um, and when you do that, when you have that inner state of peace, what people mostly report, and we do a lot of retreats here, and I hear this feedback quite a lot, is that when they make that move to honor themselves and put themselves first, that peace that they get from that reaches their partner and their families, even their pets, and they start over time start to respond differently and calm down and are more chilled out. But that first step, it starts from within me. It doesn't start from outside. Um, if I'm full, then if I'm not full, I need to make myself full. So this thing of honoring time for yourself, really, really important. And um, that's the first step. Make that commitment, put that time aside, and do that inner work. Make your meditations happen. And you'll find people will start to respect that you live with. But it's your first step. It's your first step of courage if you want it to happen.
And the final question today is, it's easy to talk to the divine,
Yeah.
but how do you listen to the divine?
Yeah, that's beautiful. Often we go to the divine and whomever you perceive that one to be, and it is good to have a chit chat. It's a lovely thing to do, but you don't want to stay there. You want to just let your mind become quiet. And as you do talk to the divine anyway, your thoughts will slow down and you'll start to feel calmer and you'll come into the space of silence. And that's part of our meditation process, the turning within, connecting with myself as a soul. So then I'm on the same vibration as the divine. And that one is picking up my thoughts. I don't need to have a lengthy conversation. That one's already knows, picking up my thoughts and my feelings. But then just practice this. Allow myself to feel the divine, to feel that one's love. Just imagine yourself being showered with beautiful vibrations of love from the divine. And let that feeling wash over you. Or perhaps you want to feel peace. Allow that peace to wash over you. And as you do this, you're building up a relationship with that one, with the divine. And you can start to listen and you can start to feel the presence. And the language we use when we connect with the divine, not words, it's thoughts and feelings. In fact, it's good feelings, good thoughts, powerful, pure, good thoughts. And if I actively take the divine into my life, so it means that when I'm sitting in meditation, I'm having these experiences and I'm feeling the divine and experiencing the connection and the relationship and the love and the depth, the stillness, and it's coloring me and it's filling me up. But I bring that one into my life. So I don't just do it when I'm seated in meditation. Yes, I do it then, but I see, okay, divine, come with me. I've got this meeting happening, or I'm going to have this conversation, or I've got all these tasks to do. I want you to stay with me. I want to feel you around me. And just with that intention, it's a two-way relationship. Just with that intention, that one will be there with you, beside you, behind you, guiding you. And just with the thought of peace, I can tune in and feel that presence. But there'll be moments, because it's a relationship, there'll be moments when I'll know something will come into my mind really clearly and I'll know to go and do something or phone someone in a moment or whatever. I'll be guided in a way to do something. And that's definitely the divine because I wouldn't have thought of it myself. And then I find out that, oh, that just had to happen then. And it happened because I picked it up, I felt the presence and responded accordingly. So to feel the vibrations of the divine, to feel the presence of the divine and to listen and to actually hear. It's about an ongoing relationship. Like any relationship, I have to invest in it. I have to put quality time into it. And what's lovely about it, it's just a thought away. And it's better than AI. It's 24/7 with the divine. And it's a very real, it's soul to Supreme Soul. It's a beautiful, real, authentic relationship. And it's there for each one of us. We just need to tap into it. So I'd say experiment with it. There's some beautiful commentaries that Artie can show you that take you into the depths of the relationship with the divine.
It's been an amazing session for us, definitely. And I can say this, whatever you did this year, it's just kind of manifesting out of you in such a beautiful way. So thank you so much for making the time and being with us.